156, Draft 2, authorizes the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Hawaii for the purpose of funding all or a portion of the cost of various public improvement projects, fixes the form, denominations, and certain other details of such bonds, and providing for their sale to the public, and authorizes the taking of other actions relating to the issuance and sale of the bonds. An aggregate principal amount of bond issuance not to exceed $61,494,010 to fund all or a portion of the cost of the 26 public improvement projects set forth in Exhibit A of the bill. Reference Communication 532-3, 532.3, introduced by Ms. Poindexter, approved FC-116.
Ms. Poindexter.
Motion to approve Bill 156, Draft 2.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ilagan. Okay, council members, before we get move forward with the amendment, I'd like to call up Nancy Crawford and Diana Sacco from the Finance Department. If you could please introduce yourselves and get us started. Oh, back? Nancy, please. Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Nancy Crawford, Director of Finance. Diana Sacco, the Director, is here with me as well. I appreciate very much the support that you have had for this bond ordinance. I am aware that there are some other amendments under consideration, and I thought I appreciate having this opportunity to just make a couple of comments. I want to make sure that everyone is clear. You know, we have our CIP appropriations that we do every year in the CIP budget, which it gets amended through the year, and you folks are authorizing, you know, a lot of different projects that can, you know, that the administration can consider moving on and going forward with. So that is occasionally referred to as a wish list, because it does not contain funding. The difference with this bond authorization is that in this you are authorizing the mayor and through finance director to issue debt to help pay for those. That puts it on a whole different level, and a level of scrutiny by our the rating agencies that we refer to sometimes, by our investors. Our authorized debt, authorized and unissued debt, as well as what has been issued, is reflected in our annual financial reports, which are sent to the rating agencies and also to a multitude of agencies and users, and available to all the investors through a federal website. So it's very important to us that it be clear that we are all functioning in a prudent manner regarding our debt authorization. And for that reason, what we would like to see in bond ordinances is your authorization for funding projects that are basically ready to go, that, you know, you work with the departments, you're aware that the departments, you know, that this is something that is in progress or about to be, and we're starting down that road. And so I would just appreciate your consideration of that as you have a discussion regarding this ordinance today.
Okay, thank you. Diana, do you want to add anything before we get to council members?
No, I'll wait for questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Poindexter.
Yeah, as the finance chair, you know, I cannot in good faith support any further amendments, and with no disrespect to the people who came before us and testified the public about the needed projects, because we all know we all have so much more projects. Some of us in more critical need because of safety issues that would love to put on the bond, this bill, and add to it. But we have to remember too, as a finance chair, I look at things being strategically planned out. And because when it comes time to pay it back, you know, we're going to put that burden on the back of the taxpayers. Not only that, we're looking at the time and spent by workers in the different departments laying out the projects that are listed on this bond. So we're looking at projects. Realistically, what can we do and what is needed? Now, I just need to tell you that the last, at the committee level, I did vote on an amendment from Ms. Ford. And the reason why I did that is everyone here had something in their district. This was about being fair to the people of Hawaii County and Ms. Ford's district. So I voted for that amendment because of equality and fairness, and which was a smaller amount. You know, not to come back, because in my district, I can tell you, Waipio Lookout is dangerous, Lapahoihoi Point is dangerous, attracted by so many tourists and public and the general public and our residents. There's Kukuihaile Park. The Kukuihaile community doesn't have a restroom, doesn't have a community gathering place. We have so many of this. I could load that on, and I could also do what other council members did by calling my constituents to come and testify on my behalf on what I want to do as amendments. I could do that. I could fill the room here and in Waimea. I could fill it with people. But I need to, my fiduciary responsibility here on the council is to look out for, in the best interest of all of the people of Hawaii County and the financial burden that we will put on their backs. So I am not supporting any further amendments. So I ask all of you to think about your responsibility, our financial responsibility to our people. So thank you.
Okay, we're not talking about any specific amendment, we're just talking about the bill itself.
Further.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not going to speak
So council members, before, just giving you some direction here. Before we head into the amendments, let's talk about the bill itself. So that's what we're doing now. And then I'm going to handle this like how we do our budget amendments. So we're going to go in the order of the communication. So we'll go point 4 to point 11. Otherwise, it becomes kind of a mixed up situation that becomes hard to follow. Okay? And I think that's fair, because we're all going to get a shot at it. It's just a matter of in what order. So we're still on the bill itself. This, wait. So Ms. Wille had her light first on, I think, and then Ms. on just the bill itself.
Yeah,
You wait, okay. On the bill itself? Okay. You want to go before?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Ms. Shirley. So Ms. Ford, you,
then I'll go.
okay, Ms. Ford, you have the floor.
Part of this is on the bill itself, and I guess I'll try to reserve my statements about these amendments for later.
Wait.
Okay. I have to concur, as you know I would, with Ms. Poindexter. I'm not blaming anybody for the way this original $61 million came down. I want to believe that this was an oversight on the part of the administration not to put a single project in District 6. I want to truly believe that this was an oversight. And when I look at Ka'u, there are some sections of Ka'u that are, compared to others, are rich in services and facilities, and then other areas have practically nothing. That's why I put those very small projects on there, as I did. Trying to just improve a little bit in the Ka'u area. I also have probably a dozen or more projects that have already gone through the CIP process, one way or the other, whether we did it in a budget cycle or I amended the budget. And I gotta tell you, I'm hesitant to believe at this moment in time, and my opinion will change if we find out differently, that all these amendments have gone through the CIP process before they got put onto this bond. That concerns me. You know, if the protocol is you do the CIP project and you know, present it to the council and we pass it, we put it on the CIP wish list, as Ms. Crawford said, which we all call it that, it's a wish list, because there's no money with it. But if you circumvent that process and just stick it on the bond issue, to me that's a violation of the protocol and it's not the right way to handle it. You need to do the job correctly. And I don't know that that's true in these cases, but if I'm going to ask every single one of these, is it on the CIP list? And if it's not, then I've got some problems with that. With that said, okay, I'm going to stop right there for now. Thank you.
Okay, and council members, we are following our 5-minute rule just for your information. So Mr. Onishi, you're next.
On the bond. Deanna or Nancy. Okay. Yes, like you mentioned before, the council does, we have our projects for CIP, which we, request or we amend to the CIP projects. But then also, we also, I guess, approve the bond when administration wants to float it. Now, I guess, yes, the financial guys do look at that, how much we appropriate, I guess, or authorize, right? Okay, but then they also look at how much do you spend, right? Right, so we could put in, like, say, like, I guess, before it came in, they put in like $100 million bond, right? Now, if you don't spend everything, like, say you only spend 50 million right now, and it's still, you only get rated upon what you spend, correct?
Okay. Before you answer, I noticed you were nodding your head, so if you can just speak when you're either agreeing or if you disagree, you can say no too.
Yeah, I'll say that
Okay.
too, okay.
Back up and get his questions for them to answer.
Well, she can respond to that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah, okay, so the first part, in terms of the capital budget, if I understood everything correctly, yes, they're looking at what we're putting on the capital budget. There's actually a table in our bond official statement showing what's in our capital budget. We do make them aware that no, we don't plan on, doing all of those projects, but they are all necessary projects. They are important projects, but fiscally we wouldn't be able to afford to do every project in the capital budget. Then they look at how much we're getting ready to issue at that point in time. So let's say 50 million, and they'll look at that and the impact it has. But another disclosure in our CAFR, our annual audited financial statements, is also what has bonds that have been authorized but are yet unissued. And that's the part we're trying to make sure doesn't also become a wish list, because then we look like we're not fiscally prudent. And so we want to ensure that what we are authorizing are important projects that need to go forward. It's well thought out, it's well planned, that we have a system. We want them to believe that we are fiscally prudent, which I believe we are, and so we're trying to reflect that on them. So there's several components they look at. Part is what we've actually spent,
And
what we've actually issued, but also what we have authorized but not
And
issued.
also, they rate us on like, what is the capabilities of the administration or the council in like raising property tax rates and what like their fund balance is, correct?
There are many
It's all a balance.
components
Yeah,
in
it's
terms
all
of the
a-
bond
Yeah,
rating,
so
yes.
it's all a balance, right?
Yes, and those components change as we speak too.
Right,
so,
because
yeah.
why I mentioned that too is that, okay, last term, when Ms. Ford had put in for the bond, authorizing the issuance of the bond for the 15.6 million, Councilmember Ikeda and myself did also piggyback that. And so from 15 went to 30 million. And basically, the ones that we had put on, Mr. Ikeda and myself, we did consult with the different departments, and then we did approve it to council. But then, coming to this bond, then I'm finding out the money that we had appropriated or authorized for that the 30 million, about half, or maybe at least a half was spent, right? So, in one way, because I think back then too, when we did authorize the 30 million, we did kind of have this talk to us, to the council members, but then if you look at what happened, they did spend it. So if Mr. Ikeda and myself didn't amend that bond that Ms. Ford had done, they wouldn't have spent anything, okay? But because we did amend and it was for good projects, they authorized the funding for those projects. Okay, so in one way, like sometimes it might be like oversight that they didn't realize or they didn't know that was this project important, and like they have the last say if you're going to approve or you're going to issue it or not, right? Correct? Or provide funding. Yeah. So in one way, what I'm looking at is that there were projects from that time, the last term, that was important because they did float like about over $8 million. that we had requested or we had put in, right? So, I mean, I understand like what we're looking at, like the, you know, like the amount, yes, it's gonna increase a little bit, but if you look at like, I guess, history, like I said, before I came in, they floated $114 million bond. Then, I think in our first term, my first term, we floated a 56. Last term, we floated another 30, and then now this term, we're looking at 60. Okay, but you know, and then like I said, projects in here is very important. But it's just that there's some that, like for me, later on when we talk about our amendments, I mean, it's like for plans and designs, just to get projects going. And then also I have one that is already shovel ready. And some funding is being provided already, but I just want to make sure that I have enough so I can cover the whole project, what we just heard today. And just to let council members know, I never called no one to come here to testify for any of these projects that I have here. Okay, let's make it clear. I didn't go and call anybody to come here and come and testify about it. So just to make that clear. But
No, and I think Nancy's comment earlier was to work with the department to ensure that it's also a priority of theirs,
Right.
that they plan on doing the project. Because, you know, if it's really 5 years down the road, then we still have plenty of time to add it to a future amendment.
Right.
You know,
And
future
but-
ordinance, sorry.
and then like also, yeah, and I did check with the departments. But then also like what I'm looking at is that at least we have it in there, so in case down the road, the department decides, okay, now we want to move forward on a project, they don't have to come to council anymore. It's already there, funding is available, it's up to them if they want to, you know, I guess float it or not. And that's to me, that's what we're looking at. And you know, if it does affect our ratings, then you know, then I guess maybe we should cut back more, right? But there is a limit that you folks can go with, right? And what would that limit be, like the max?
I mean, we generally look at that total debt service expenditures do not exceed 15% of our total expenditures. Keeping in mind that, you know, this is not every project that has to be done. There are future projects as well that need to be considered.
Right, right. And so what is our percentage right now?
I believe we're at 13.5 or so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kern was next, I believe, and then Ms. Wille.
Thank you, yeah, I think the way that I look at it, I've heard what, there's so many projects similar to Ms. Poindexter, I'm not going to get into anything specific, but I feel just from a fiscally prudent manner, we're right there pushing our debt service limit. I think to push it up to 14.5 or 15% would not be responsible, because we never know what could happen. We need to actually, issue emergency bonds or whatever. I think it's good to have a little bit of cushion in there myself. So my stance is the same as it was before when we vote last, that I support any changes to this and just keep it as it is. And there's so much, I just wish we could issue a bond for $200 million and get so many more projects done, but that's just not where we're at right now. So I'm very grateful for what we do have. Got to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. Ms. Wille.
What I don't like in terms of the current bond proposal is that there was not any together we can. There was no discussion, at least in my case with me. There was no, from whether it was the mayor's office, absolutely zero. And each time I requested to meet, it was no, he's not available to me. I did not have any of this with the finance department. The items in District 9 were items that were committed previously. In fact, the one for the district park, the commitment originally had been $9.5 million to correspond to the state. That was then dropped on both sides down to the 2.5. That's been in process since 1992. I think on the housing one, anyway, I considered that, as far as I'm concerned, mismanaged. Anyway, there was no communication. The items that I put on here are ones that are a small amount of the cost, but will leverage the opportunity for much more funding. They're only ones that would not only help District 9, but would help the island as a whole. So I just want to talk about, I'll stick to my specifics, but I just want to say, in terms of the process, as far as I'm concerned, it's way off. And it's not just me, it's also our CDPs. If you look at and read the general plan and read the CDP, it is that their perhaps most important role is designating priorities in terms of spending. What I put on here were things that were addressed and promoted and considered significant. So what I'm saying is, in terms of debt, by not doing the things where, at least where someone such as me has researched, by doing X amount, we're going to be able to get so much more, you lose that opportunity. So I just want to say, I do not respect how the administration handled this. I feel that there should be, not just in words, but in deeds, together we can. And I agree with what Chairman Yoshimoto said. When we opened the door on Ms. Ford's last time, we were in fact opening the door for other considerations. So there was clear justification for that. We voted in favor of Ms. Ford's. And I don't feel that one should therefore differentiate between current concerns. So I yield.
Okay, so we're still on the bill itself. Mr. Ilagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Each one of these projects are important, and one of the things that each council member understands is what project is important to their district. And we all know that, and that's why we're advocating for these projects. Now, for the authorization, the bond ratings, it's not as simple as you make it out to be. It's more complex than what you're saying. But when I'm looking at the 56 million bond that we did do, it looks like the sewer phase 2 was a $6,900,000 project that was stricken out because there was other fundings available. Now, according to that, that wasn't authorized. It wasn't issued. So please correct please correct me if I'm wrong, but there was $6 million that was not authorized. That was in the $56 million bond.
Mr. Ilagan, I'm not, if I don't respond correctly, it's because I don't understand your question. However, that particular situation that you're referring to, there was a bond authorization for the SRF funds that were used. When we originally did the bond authorization, we did it to pay with county funding, and that's why it was in that bond authorization. The council authorized us to use county GO bond funds to do the Kalanianaoli sewer project. Subsequent to that, they were able to obtain state revolving funds, which are far more favorable in terms of their cost to us for use. So we came again to the council and got a bond authorization to do the SRF funding as an alternative, and did in fact do the project with those funds, which then made this 6.9 million that we are amending available for us to redirect, and then we come back to the council to ask for your approval for us to redirect it into these various maintenance projects that we identified.
So, Director, what we're asking is pretty much what you said. We're asking the council to authorize these bonds, and what I'm trying to understand is, out of this $56 million that was authorized, was it all issued? And it wasn't. We had to, and with that, it didn't drop our ratings drastically. Like what you're saying is that we have to watch out. But what we're asking is, we're not we're not putting in projects that are just gonna be dud projects. We want these projects to happen. And one of the things I also want to mention is that the economy, this is the perfect time to get bonds authorized. This is the interest rates right now, this is the opportune time to do it. If we wait another year, the interest rates are gonna go up. And why not take advantage of this when it's the perfect time to do it? So that's what I just want to mention for this council and to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
May Director, I know you have some comments, could you please?
Well, thank you for just allowing me to respond there. First, I would like to say that I hope it is not my intention to imply to the council that our ratings are based only on our authorized but unissued debt or our issued debt. That is a component, as was discussed. That's one small component of everything that happens. However, if you gradually increase the amount that council is authorizing us, and it's going faster than we even have, besides funding, there is also just the human capacity of our departments to do a certain number of projects, and they've made a commitment to really push on the projects that were originally included in this bond authorization, and that doesn't take away anything from all the many other projects there are, but that was part of putting it in here, was having departmental commitment to make these priorities. And so that's the reason we mentioned working with the departments, and if in fact what they understand our priorities are not your priorities, then I believe that's probably a misunderstanding, because we felt there was contact and information out there. We don't need to authorize now for a project that we're hoping is going to get done next year or the year after. There are opportunities to come back, and we see how fast we're spending money, we see how fast we're paying down our bonds, where we're at, and there are opportunities both to amend existing authorizations or to do other new money authorizations as it becomes appropriate, based on how quickly we can actually complete projects.
Thank you, Director.
Okay, I'm just going to try and summarize just a little bit before we move forward. So, Ms. Crawford, it's accurate to say that the bond proposal that was submitted by the administration consists of projects that are ready to move on, for lack of a better term. That's accurate, yes?
Yes, that's
okay.
accurate.
And the concern about raising the bond amount, some of the concerns are that it'll increase our debt ratio. What did you refer to that as?
Well, our debt ratio actually is based on the actual debt, the actual amount we've issued, but we look at what has been authorized when we calculate that, and that's what we report on as well.
Right.
So the 13.5% I was referring to includes everything that has already been authorized but may not have been issued, as well as the draft 2 of this bill.
Okay, so in simpler terms, maybe for the layperson to understand, it's like getting a home equity loan for, I don't know, $200,000, but you're only using 100, right? But then if you want to get another loan on top of that, they would calculate what you could technically borrow, right? As opposed to, right? So.
Yeah, we don't want to mislead anyone by saying, our current percentage is X. So, we have all this space up to 15, when we know there have been other authorizations to bring us up to 13.5%. So
okay.
we want to be honest with everyone.
I just want to try to keep it as simple, as possible. So an option would be to, and I'm just thinking about like a budget. An option would be to, instead of increasing the amount, I hate to say this, but this is an option. You could actually subtract from a project to add to a different project to keep the amount the same. I'm just thinking in terms of a budgetary item almost, because that's essentially another possibility, right? And I'm not suggesting a compliment, I'm just talking out loud. Is that an accurate statement?
Right. If I understood you right, is that either you remove a project and replace it with another project, or you change the funding. The funding that's included here is actually based on existing appropriations and what, you know, our understanding from the departments is the amount they need for those projects.
Okay, and that gets real sticky, Councilman. I just was thinking out loud in terms of what, you know, rather than increase our amount that we're gonna borrow. So. Okay, so any further discussion before I move to the amendments on the building as it stands now? Ms. Ford?
Thank you. May I ask Mr. Onishi a question?
Pertaining to draft 2 as it stands?
No, just a generic
Oh,
question.
go ahead.
On
Okay.
Mr. Onishi, I didn't quite understand. I remember when you guys added, you and Mr. Kita added the extra 15 million to my 16.5. I understand that. Were those projects already through the CIP process?
You know, I think some were, but some was like for, I know like, Cicada had some like for police where they were gonna, I guess, renovate or they were gonna repair.
Okay. Thank you, and I may come back to you for a second. Here's the situation I'm seeing. We, the council, don't see every project that's going on. We know what we need in our districts, and the protocol, which I seem to be following, and I'm getting frustrated because I seem to be sometimes the only person following protocol, is if we want to do a project in our district, then we go through the CIP budget amendment process. However, the administration doesn't have the same process. They can put things on the CIP list based on their internal knowledge of what they need, like for instance, renovating the police station over in Hilo or a fire station or something like that, that will wind up on the CIP list because the administration puts it on the list. And it can get bonded like that. My concern is that when we, the council, try to impact the CIP, and we call it the wish list because we put the projects on that our community wants us to have. And we all get a chance to look at it and decide on its merits. And 99 times out of 100, we all vote to put it on the wish list because it costs nothing to have it on the list. And we might be able to get funding for it. But what I seem to be seeing here is that we, the council, aren't doing the protocol that I was trained to do when I first came on the council and have continued to do. I see people, it seems to me that we're circumventing this, and so I'm having a problem with that, so I'll yield.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna, any other discussion? Oh, Ms. Ia.
Just real quick, I wanted to thank Ms. Crawford and Ms. Sacco for explaining this situation, and while I did also support Ms. Ford's amendment at the last meeting, I totally understand now much more clearly, and thank you, Ms. Ford, too, having articulated that the process, and that if some of these projects that are so important to this current council need to be placed on the CIP in order to move them forward towards priority. One of the council members mentioned that some of the things that are on this current bond were from previous council members' CIP suggestions or wish lists, but that's sort of how you have to wait, right? It has to kind of rise to the top. And so I understand what you've said, and I appreciate, and while it's hard to not support some of these projects, maybe there's another way we can begin to move them forward in the protocol that I've just understood is more appropriate. So if that's correct, I would just have to say thank you for clearing it up.
Okay, Mr. Kanuha.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also appreciate everything the department does. I will be supporting this as is, and you know, we did work a lot with the department and the administration on for myself, a lot of the projects on this list, and you know, it almost seems like we want more. We keep on wanting more and more and more. It doesn't seem fiscally responsible to our constituents, our taxpayers, the people who you know, pay taxes on this island, to keep on adding. And I understand all these projects are really important, but it just, you know, we're also here to be fiscally responsible. That's also our duty as a council person. So I basically, I'm not gonna be, I'll just support, you know, what's currently now. And, you know, hearing all the discussion, I really don't even wanna hear these amendments, so I'm gonna call a question.
Okay. There's a call for the question on Bill 156 Draft 2 as it stands now, without any further amendments. It's not debatable, so Mr. Clerk, I'm going to revert back to roll call. The question has been called, so an affirmative vote means we just vote on this, a negative vote means we continue discussion. Go ahead.
Ms. Dion. Ms. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Ilagan.
No.
Mr. Kanuha.
Aye.
Mr. Kurt.
Aye.
Mr. Onishi.
No.
Ms. Poindexter.
Aye.
Ms. Willie.
No.
Chair Yoshimoto.
Kanaloa, yes.
Chair Yoshimoto, you have 6 ayes and 3 noes.
Okay, so the question has been called on the Bill 156 Draft 2 as it stands now.
We have discussion?
No,
No discussion?
because the call for the question passed by 6 votes. So we're going to vote on Bill 156 Draft 2.
I move to reconsider.
You move to reconsider the call for the question.
Previous call for the question.
Yeah, the reconsideration can be called upon by the prevailing side, so, yeah, unless someone can correct that interpretation, so.
Ms. Dion.
Aye.
Ms. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Ilagan.
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha.
Aye.
Mr. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Onishi.
Aye.
Ms. Poindexter.
Aye.
Ms. Willie.
No.
Chair Yoshimoto.
Aye.
Chair Yoshimoto, you have 8 ayes and 1 no.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Bill 156 Draft 2 passes first reading. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Bill 159